This morning's parasha of Nitzavim contains one of the most eloquent and inspiring passages in a long series of eloquent and inspiring passages delivered by Moshe Rabbeinu during his final day on this earth. Assembling all of the people, Moshe called upon heaven and earth as witnesses, and then later said, "Hachayim v'hamavet natati lefanecha, habracha v'haklala." I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Uvacharta v'chayim. Choose life, he urged. Leman tichyeh ata v'zarecha, so that you and your children may live and love the Lord your God. Listen to his voice, cleave to him. Ki hu chayecha v'orech yamecha, because God is your life and the length of your days. God is your life. That's what this season is all about. Accepting God as our King is the reason for life and the source of inspiration. Uvacharta b'chayim. Choose life. And yet, in the Talmud Yerushalmi, this soaring statement takes an earthward plunge as Rabbi Yishmael interprets Moshe's charge of Uvacharta b'chayim, to choose life, as to choose an umnut, a craft or a trade. And therefore he taught that a father must prepare his son to earn a livelihood, while Rabbi Akiva disagreed, saying Uvacharta b'chayim does not refer to teaching of a trade, rather of the obligation of a father to teach his son how to swim and how to row. And while none of us are really in a position of sufficient greatness to dispute Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, one thing is for sure, that compared to the majesty of Moshe Rabbeinu's words, these explanations seem at first glance to be ordinary and mundane. Because is swimming or teaching your child a trade really what Moshe Rabbeinu had in mind on his very last day on this earth? Is that really the lesson he wanted to transmit at the end of his 40-year tenure? The charge he asked heaven and earth to witness, that Chaim, that the secret of life, the life we're supposed to choose, is as prosaic as becoming a manager or a salesman, a shoemaker or a tailor, or according to Rabbi Akiva, a senior lifeguard. But you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe what Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to teach his people more than anything else was that the way of God, the way of Torah, the way of life must find expression in how a person makes a living, how one buys and sells, serves, and maybe even swims. Because until we came on the scene, until the Jewish people received the Torah, to choose a religious life was to choose an aesthetic life and remove oneself from life, choosing instead a monastic existence, renouncing all that is material in life. But then HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, and he challenged us, Uvacharta b'chayim. Not a chayim like others thought that their gods demanded, but a life of involvement and of engagement. And that's what Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael wanted to teach. Because despite their difference in the application of this imperative, both agreed that to choose life means to be engaged with it. That true spirituality can be found in the marketplace, in the office, in the factory, and the laboratory, and not exclusively at the edge of some silent brooding pond, because a Jewish life is to be in the middle of the river, swimming with the tide and sometimes directly against it, caught up in the currents of events. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu offered his people on his last day, the blessing of living a life with others and for others, which truly is a majestic thought and a transformative approach. And yet, despite the glory of Moshe Rabbeinu's hopes, there is one problem that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael may not have anticipated. And that is sometimes, and with some of us, our engagement with life defines who we are. What do I mean? It's simply that there's nothing wrong with being part of society. There's nothing wrong with earning a living, having a profession or a trade, or engaging with society. In fact, all of that can be ideal, unless that's all we do. Unless we let our jobs define who we are and not let who we are define our jobs. Or as the late Rabbi Bernard Rosenzweig once said, after 120, when the heavenly court will ask, Kavata itim la Torah, it won't simply be, did we set times to study Torah, but Kavata itim, did we adjust the times la Torah to Torah values, or God forbid, did we try to change the eternal values of Torah to fit the times? Because there is spirituality in being a professional, a lawyer, a doctor, a salesman, or even a tradesman. If we remember that we're different, that God holds us to a different standard, and that our beliefs, our values must define our jobs and not the opposite. Or as the final Mishnah in Kiddushin states, Shelo ha'aniyut min ha'umnut velo ha'ashirut, that success or failure in business is not a function of the business we are in or the work that we do. Rather, everything is from God, and everything depends on zchuto, whether our deeds merit success or not, which may be why this week's first parashah is always read before Rosh Hashanah, because it's at this season when we're continually praying to God for chayim, for life. It's at this season when we ask Him for life that we need to remember what it means to live, that it's not just for us, but it's for our children. And it's not just about us, it's about God. And it's not just a chayim of separation, of being isolated, but a chayim of engagement, of trying to change and impact the world, make a difference in this world, l'tov. On behalf of Margaret and our entire family, and Rabbi Bressler and Davina and their entire family, I wish you all a k'tiva v'chatima tova, many years of life, engaged with the world and inspiring others, years filled with health, happiness, and the opportunity to be mekadesh shem shamayim, to achieve not only our own personal sense of fulfillment, but to achieve a chayim that will impact all of humanity. Shabbat shalom.